Now entering the squared circle pit, one of the hottest stars in all elite wrestling right now, Darby Allin. Thank you so much for taking some time to do this. How are you feeling after that massive pop last week?
I don't know. It was crazy. I wasn't expecting that for sure. I just think validation for all my hard work. So I felt rewarded. That's the word.
Yeah, no, I believe it. And it's been really cool to see how, I've seen you work on the indies in the last few years, seen you in Evolve and a few other places and like PWG tapes, and just seeing like the national wrestling audience kind of discover you and get into what you're about has been really cool. Like when you see those kids wearing, the Darby face paint in the crowd, like what goes through your mind?
Like I said earlier, it's validation. I knew I had what it took to connect to people if I was given the ball, and that's all I ever needed was the ball. And now that once I got it, I proved it to everybody that I could connect with anyone, kids, women, men. It's good. I remember being that age when I was young and little, and looking up to some like you, looking up to people and stuff like that. So it's cool to be in those shoes.
Did you watch wrestling as a kid? How did you get into pro wrestling?
I can't remember what age I started watching wrestling, but I remember I definitely remember watching it as a kid for sure.
Did you get into wrestling first, or obviously you're a big punk guy, big music guy? Which caught your attention first?
Probably wrestling a little bit because it's hard for me. Like it's been hard to really be into punk rock when I was like 5 years old. So it was definitely wrestling that caught my attention first because that would be fucking weird if I was like wearing a Crash shirt when I was 5.
Yeah, like getting into GG Allen at 5, probably not the best bet.
I was shitting my pants at 5.
Yeah, I guess that aspect of the character was there. So who got you into music? Who exposed you to like the underground stuff, and around what age were you into it?
Just from skate culture and stuff like that. I'd be skating around the city in Seattle, and then you'd see flyers on like those poles and stuff like that. And I remember seeing Circle Jerks. That was like my first ever concert. So I must have been in like 7th grade or something like that. So I just say skating around Seattle, being around interesting people.
Do you have any like vivid memories from that first show of just like, yes, I belong here? Like that's kind of how I felt when I went to my first shows.
Yes and no. I like the debauchery of the night. Like this guy was walking through, and I guess his heroin needle fell out of his pocket as he was walking through security, and they all tackled him. And being like in 7th grade, I was like, "What the hell is going on here?" I didn't even know what that needle was at the time, until someone explained to me what it was. But besides that, like the part that like drew me in was just being free and like just raging in the pit and stuff like that. Yeah, there's nothing else like it. Element of danger that kind of drew me to it.
And like, what are some of the bands that are like your bands? Like either stuff you're listening to now, or just stuff that you'll always have a connection with that'll always be in rotation.
I'd say a lot of the anarcho punk stuff from like Crash Records and all that stuff. I like that's like my favorite type of music. But outside of that, it'd probably be Dystopia. I like the Crams. I like all that type of music. So, but I'd say definitely my top is anything to do with Crash Records.
Cool. So like hardcore punk kind of variety. You want it like
Yeah,
dirty and like a nice D beat.
I do like Leftover Crack. That's a good band.
They've been around for quite a while. That's cool. And like, have any of these punk bands, like, have you ever gotten word from like any bands who are like, hey man, I'm a big fan of yours and All Elite Wrestling, where it's kind of like a reciprocal appreciation?
Yeah, there's been a couple. I've filmed some stuff with Ghostman for some promos because the bass player Nolan, stage name Ray, he's like a fan, and we ended up becoming like good friends and stuff like that. So then we filmed the promo where I got at the concert and crowd surfing the body bag.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Stuff like that's pretty cool.
And how did you come up with the body bag thing? I think that's such a unique gimmick. And I remember the match, I believe it was with Moxley on AEW, where you brought it up. And I feel like people were so maybe confused is the word, but like in a good way, like what the hell is going on? It's such a unique addition to pro wrestling.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said earlier in previous interviews that I've done, I never like to recycle wrestling back into wrestling. I like to take outside influences, things I loved growing up, and bring them into the world of wrestling because it sticks out so much more than just being a kid who, what you do your whole life. Oh, I'm just a fan of wrestling. It's like, then you just look generic as shit.
I hear you. I mean, you're definitely doing that with the body bag, the skateboard. I love the entrance and even your entrance theme. I feel it's kind of like not like other entrance themes. Who wrote that?
Yeah, that's like my friend Wicked Face Springs Internal. He made that with me. So there's a thank him.
I love it. Going back a little bit to like you were mentioning like in wrestling as a kid. Who were your guys growing up? Who were the ones you were a fan of?
Oh man, it would I don't know, people like Ray Mysterio probably, Jeff Hardy, a couple others. Just I don't know, so like people that looked like super alternatives
Hmm.
and not generic and steroided up. People that spoke to me as a child.
I hear you. Like the ones that kind of like stood out more. Like Rey Mysterio is definitely one of my favorites as well. Just I'm assuming for the same reason as you is that he wasn't one of these beefed up dudes. He was the smaller guy, and he was just doing such spectacular moves. Much like it's a Jeff Hardy, like the Hardy package for me. I was like, holy shit! Finally, there's like rock dudes like in wrestling because everyone was just like so straight and narrow. It was cool to see people that kind of look like dudes I went to high school with almost.
Yeah, it'd be like he's walking through an airport and you'd be like, that guy's in a band or that guy's this. You wouldn't think wrestling, and that's what's kind of cool about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of downtime backstage at AEW. Like, who do you talk? Who do you hang with? Who do you talk music with? Are there any other fellow punks back there?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, I don't know. It's I talk to a lot of people, but music wise,
Hmm.
I don't know.
No music discussions
Pass. I'm gonna
backstage.
pass on that question. You got obviously you got guys that love music like Havoc or Jericho, and the list goes on. But
Hmm.
when it comes to like my type of music, I don't know. You know what I mean? Maybe there's someone who'd surprise me, like, yo, by the way, I like that. And you're like, oh shit. But as of right now, I have no idea.
Hmm. Understood. You got to start exposing the backstage crew to the stuff. Get Ghostman blasting. I think it would work. You're working a program right now with Sammy Guevara, and I think that I'm really excited to see your match this weekend with him at AEW Revolution because I feel like you guys have a complementing style, sort of like you guys are around the same size, and like you could do some cool stuff together. I'm sure this is something that you've given a lot of thought to. Like, what goes into the preparation of a big match like this?
I don't know. Not trying to shove a million things into whether it be a 10-minute match or whatever it may be.
Mhm.
Don't want to oversaturate, and I always want to stick to the story that I set out at hand originally and not try to overcomplicate things and tell a good story. That's all that's on my mind. I'm not really about the moves, I'm about the story. So we'll see. Of course there's gonna be killer moves. That's like gonna happen, especially on pay-per-view. But I don't want to sometimes you get like a 5-minute match and some tries to shove 30 minutes worth of shit in a 5-minute match. And then A, it might look sloppy, or B, it just might look like just you can't even remember what the hell happened 2 seconds ago.
Right.
I just want to be a story of me trying to rip this story out as clear as possible and not steer away from it.
I think that's something where actually I feel like you really excel. Like I've seen you do high spots, but I wouldn't say you're a high spots wrestler. You definitely do focus on the story, and it's something like I think you're pretty good at. Like the match with Cody, where you're telling the story, like nobody expects you to win, but you're the underdog, and with Moxley as well. And then in the end, you kind of gain their respect. And with this match you're telling a different story where you're out for revenge. And one thing that I think aided that was the video packages. Again, something you don't really see from these other wrestlers. And I feel it's very interesting how I don't know if media savvy is the word, but just that you have the. I'm assuming you saw it in your head, like I want to do this video. Like where did you get this cinematography situation going? Where like I'm assuming these are your ideas, these videos.
Yeah, I went to film school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I literally filmed all those videos with my friend Max Yoder. He's just a skater from Atlanta. He films for like Thrasher, and he's filming a bunch of skate videos. So it's just me and him getting together and filming some shit that I want to do myself. So But I'd say a lot of it's just the drive that I have for I love film because I'm going to be directing my first full length film here in a couple of months. So just a bunch of random stuff like that.
Oh, I had no idea you went to film school. That's really cool. Do you want to talk about like what your feature film is kind of about? Not if you don't want to give it like what kind of movie it is.
Like a dark comedy. It's about a guy who's terminally ill, got about 3 months to live. His best friend comes up to him and is like, "Yo, man, I've done everything with you. What's the last thing you want to do before you die? Anything you want, I'm by your side, man." Uh, the guy who's terminally ill says, "I want to go on a cross-country road trip to kill my ex-wife." So it's about that.
Hmm. Okay, something you bring the whole family to.
Long story short, him and his best friend are on a cross-country road trip to kill ex-wife, and he's terminally ill. So it's kind of dark comedy.
Yeah, I could see how it's a dark comedy. That's again much like your mattress, something very unique. Who were some of your film guys then? Like who did you look up to and thought like this is kind of what I want to do?
I'd say a lot of, I like Todd Phillips a lot. Besides that, just a lot of people that maybe shot on a budget and it wasn't like super expensive, just because I really like that type of style, because I feel like it forces you to be more creative. You can't
Agree.
afford everything. Yeah, it varies, but I like movies that are kind of like real in the sense of they like. See, I don't. It's not like I like the movie Pink Flamingos, but that movie, the stuff they were doing, it was real and it was sketchy. But
You could say, I mean, I love Big Living. There's nothing wrong with eating a little shit at the end of a movie, you know?
yeah, like it was good, but like sometimes the story in that movie was just like, what are we watching? Like, what's that?
Right, it just
I think
veers off.
it was just made to shock people.
For sure. So I'm assuming with the Todd Phillips line that you were a fan of the Joker.
Yeah, I like the Joker, but I really like Todd Phillips' just like all of his films pretty much, and it's interesting that his first film that he ever made was a documentary about Gigi Allen. So I always thought that was interesting.
Oh, that's right. I always forget that, and then it comes up in like a IMDb, and I'm like, that's crazy. But speaking of Gigi Allen, did you see that there was a Gigi Allen documentary that came out a year or two ago that kind of followed his family and his wacky brother?
Yeah, of course, I saw it. Yeah, I saw it. Probably All in the Family or something like that.
Right, right.
Yeah, the Murder Junkies. I've seen them play like 3 times now. I wanted them to play at my wedding, but Merle started charging me way too much. I'm like, man, come on, we agreed on this. Now you're saying this. Yeah, it would have been funny to have them play at my wedding. And Dino, the drummer, he's an ordained minister, so he says I could have married you and your wife, and I could have been naked for it. And I was like, I don't know if I want you naked for it, but
Yeah, that Merle seems like quite a capitalist, which seems a little antithetical to the Gigi Allen brand.
yeah.
Well, we're gonna wind it down here, and I want to thank you so much for taking some time to hang out here on Squared Circle Pit. I'm just curious now. You know, obviously the Sammy Guevara match is this weekend, and I don't think you're looking past it. But who are some guys in AEW that you're excited to in the future work a program with that you think you could have some good stuff going?
Well, that I haven't done already.
Yeah.
I'd love to get back in there with Jericho
Mm-hmm.
and tell like a long, long story. I'd love to get back in there with Moxley and tell a long, long story, because essentially all those matches were just one-offs, we can build type thing. But I'd say like Kenny, someone like that.
Yeah, I think that would be a really fun match as well. When you worked with Jericho, was he get like? I feel like he has this wealth of knowledge. Do you feel that you left the match kind of learning something about a wrestling or how to put together a story in the ring that you might have not necessarily thought about beforehand?
Yeah, definitely. Just pacing and like, I feel like on the independents, a lot of people, wrestlers, feel like the moment they like hit something big and then they stop, they get like all like nervous and they got to go right to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
But here I've been learning like, hit something big and don't be afraid to just sit there for a minute and not do anything. It's no big deal. Like stuff like that, I've learned a lot of just pacing, and that's good.
That's cool. Two final questions. Number one, if you could front any band right now, what band would you want to be the front man of?
Dead or alive?
It could be any band, dead or alive. It does. They don't have to be an existing band.
All right. Yeah. All right. This is tricky.
Well, would it be easier if it's just Alive to kind of narrow it down for you?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll go with live. Turbo Negro.
All right, there we go. I like it. That's another excellent band. And finally, I guess it could be the same answer as we part ways. What's one band that you think our listeners should take a moment and give a listen to?
Dystopia.
Cool. I love it. Awesome. Darby, thank you so much for hanging out on Squared Circle Pit. I wish you success this weekend and throughout your career.
All right. Thank you, Mike.